Hi, this is Amy Chen, Adam Hooks, and Margaret Sheppard, and we're here to do a replacement video for our MLA presentation for 2018 on Mark. I'm the game designer, and I know that this is flipped, but I'm the University of Iowa English and American Literature librarian, and my Twitter handle is @AmyHildreth_Chen. Or you can just find me on the internet by searching for Amy Chen. So when we decided to create this Mark game, the idea behind the game is that it's a deck builder. Deck builder games focus on the creation of a deck to generate the fun of the game. Players should enjoy building their own unique holdings, their own decks, before the game, and then when they start to play, the game will be different according to who they meet and what other cards they have gathered. This concept for Mark relies on crowdsourced curation. Crowdsourcing is a common way to get audiences interested in cultural heritage content. For example, crowdsourced programs exist around transcription projects that appeal to particular interests. So for example, World War II letters or science fiction fanzines. Here we hope to mobilize the rare book community to submit their own marks to the ever-expanding game. Although all that is needed are clear images of each mark and the date the mark was made, and we're asking for sets of 12. So my next point is that each deck has only 12 cards. With which 12 marks you choose is up to your imagination. Are they all marks associated with a certain genre, say medical books? Are they different imprints of the same marks to see how they age and perhaps change over the course of a printer's career? Or are they marks associated with a particular period like incunabula or a location such as Venice? Or even marks by different printers at different places and different times, but are all united by a certain symbol or aesthetic? How you curate is what makes your particular deck interesting and what helps all of us learn more about early modern visual culture. We would love to have decks curated by major repositories as well as by students, faculty, and staff members. What would the Rare Book School's deck look like? What would the Folgers? What would yours? Finally, this is an open educational resource. Open educational resources are designed to enrich educational engagement at low or no cost, and in our case, this is at no cost. An OER resource should be given for free and is open for remixing. When we have a website, it will provide all of our cards for free and you can print them locally without needing to obtain our permission. You can also get these card files through PowerPoint so you can easily swap out our images for yours. And that way you can fit your local holdings or intellectual interests to the game. While you can play our version, you don't have to, and that's what makes it great. When you assign the game to your class, students can make their own decks by selecting between items in pre-made decks, remixing what's already available, or researching their own. Maybe that's an assignment you could ask them to do, is to figure out what decks they want in their own, or what marks they want in their own deck. How fun would it be to have an undergraduate student in a seminar go to special collections, research a mark, create a card, and then come together to play games with those cards with their classmates? Or what about having graduate students create their own decks and justify their selections in a paper? So there's no set game, and that's what makes Mark so interesting. Just like a regular deck of cards, our cards can create mini games. Our website will provide several options based on old favorites like Go Fish and Slapjack, but feel free to come up with your own. So now we're going to talk to Adam Hooks, who will explain some of the subject expertise required to work with this type of material. Oh.
Hi, I'm the subject expert, Adam Hooks. Hey, there I am playing Mark. So, my subject expert part of this presentation. Number one, identification. Renaissance readers did indeed judge a book by its cover, and there's much to learn by attempting to recover the ways in which they did so. Tile pages were the most visible identifier of a book, and they were commonly used as advertisements. All of the elements of a title page were important sites of meaning, but printers' marks, in particular, were a way for printers and publishers to distinguish and market their merchandise. They were not purely informational or ornamental, but were visible and legible as a form of paratext, situated at the intersection of visual symbolism and textuality. If the Renaissance had a trademark, it would be this, the dolphin and anchor device of Aldus Manutius. The story of this emblematic device and the motto it illustrates, festina lente, or make haste slowly, was first explicated by Erasmus, who characterized it as sound advice for those devoted to humanistic studies. The anchor, which holds back and ties down the ship and binds it fast, indicates slowness. The dolphin, as the fastest and in its motions most agile of living creatures, expresses speed. If then you skillfully connect these three, they will make up some such principle as ever hasten slowly. The Aldine mark was immediately successful and influential, and it was imitated by publishers and pirates across the European book trade. My field of expertise happens to be in the early modern English book trade, and so I'll focus on one example of an English anchor device used by the printer Thomas Vautrolier, a French Huguenot refugee who had a successful career in London. And his mark, which you see here, had the motto Ancora Spei, the anchor of hope, a common sign that referred either to the spare anchor of a ship or to Paul's epistle to the Hebrews, in which he writes of hope as the anchor of the soul. And we know this is the specific reference intended by him because a version of the device appears on the binding of a book published by Vautrolier that cites Hebrews chapter 6, verses 19 to 20. So this was both Vautrolier's trademark and a sign of his personal religious commitments. This mark was an echo rather than a direct imitation of the Aldine anchor, but some English readers did make the connection between these two devices. Here is an Aldine imprint with a dueling set of marginalia. The first owner has copied in the familiar phrase, spes ancora mea, but a subsequent owner of the book, the Cambridge scholar Gabriel Harvey, has replied, res ancora mea. Marks could constitute a form of communication, one with commercial and interpretive consequences, but at times readers were simply fascinated with or intrigued by a device for what appears to be a kind of aesthetic appreciation. This example, from a book here in the Special Collections Library at Iowa, shows a title page that has been torn and repaired by an early owner who, faced with a faulty book, a title page, or a desire to conceal a controversial religious treatise, or maybe just he liked anchors, took the mark and used it to repair or maybe obscure or maybe enhance the appearance of his book. And here's an even better example from a hybrid book at the Folger Shakespeare Library of an illustrated and hand-colored Ancora Spei device. Scholars of bibliography and book history have attended to the variety of paratextual elements of early modern books, from prefaces and printed marginalia to title pages, frontispiece engravings, and even the purely informational imprint. Yet printers' marks, despite their visual prominence, have been largely invisible. My goal here, then, is to suggest, or to have suggested, some of the ways in which these elements can make meaning for us, ways in which they were intended to be used and understood, but more importantly, the ways in which they can be interpreted and can open up new ways of understanding the textual culture of the Renaissance. And now I will pass along to Margaret Sheppard.
Hello, I'm Margaret Sheppard, and I am the Iowa Incunabula Curator. That's me. That's my handle, MEM Sheppard. And I'm a PhD student here at the University of Iowa. As an English literature and book studies PhD student, I value printers' marks as research subjects because they have the potential to convey information about the contemporary aesthetic, regional, and commercial cultures in which early modern books were created. In order to develop a more comprehensive understanding of the history and significance of printers' marks, I chose to curate a game deck that would showcase printers' marks in incunabula housed at the University of Iowa's special collections. I also built a website with descriptive information about each mark in the deck. In curating this deck, I noticed regional aesthetic similarities in the marks at Iowa. For instance, the marks of Paris-based printers Philippe Picouget, Félix Baligot, and Denis Roos are all printed on the title pages of their incunable books and special collections. All of the Venetian marks, on the other hand, are printed in the back with the colophon. The pictorial features of the Parisian marks echo one another, depicting two figures holding a shield, while the Venetian marks host a variety of circles and crosses. These circles and crosses have been read as unimaginative by 19th and 20th century bibliographers, but through analyzing a number of these marks alongside each other, it is clear that the circle and cross can be taken as a genre of printer's mark, and within that genre there are creative variations and subgenres. In short, through compiling a deck of incunable printer's marks, I've come to appreciate incunabula as signposts of the creativity and experimentation of early print cultures. And lastly, I'd like to talk about curatorial attention. In the process of putting this deck together, and here's some examples of what this deck might look like with some of those different generic variations. In the process of putting this together, I was reminded that every repository has its own values and organizational principles, which are reflected in its curatorial methods. The specific books housed in a collection can speak volumes about that collection, but so can the catalog descriptions for those works. One area where there is potential for more curatorial and scholarly attention is printers' marks. Some libraries, like the University of Barcelona, document printers' marks in great detail, but most simply note printer's device or omit that information from the catalog description. One opportunity for me with this deck was actually looking through our incunable collection in order to track down all of our early printers' marks. This process gave way to material analyses of the books at hand and prompted me to consider the ways in which one might actually describe printers' marks. I considered pictorial features, mottos, placement within the book, print locations, similarities to other printers' marks, familial and professional connections between printers, and more. In generating a description of a mark, I inevitably generated a list of research questions. In presenting my deck to the team, the potential research questions doubled. Why is this mark printed in red? Why does this mark feature monkeys? What animals were commonly used in printers' marks? And more. Through curating this deck, I have found that this game offers scholars and, more inclusively, players the opportunity to consider ways of interpreting printers' marks and, by extension, ways of connecting with early modern literary and visual culture. We're very excited about this game, and we hope that you will join us in collaborating. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching our makeup presentation, and we look forward to working with you shortly.